Before we get started on the Dhammapada, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good afternoon, Venerable Sangha Venerable Monastics and Sangha. Where are my homies at? Not here, apparently. Okay. So we're going to continue, as usual, on the Dhammapada, the words of the Buddha. We are still on chapter 4. We're almost to the end. We are in chapter 4, verse 53 today. 53. So as usual, I will recite the verse, go through the story, and then give my commentary. So the verse 53 goes as, just as one can make many garlands from a heap of flowers, so too should a mortal, having been born, do many wholesome deeds. Repeat that. Just as one can make many garlands from a heap of flowers, so too should a mortal, having been born, do many wholesome deeds. So the story that kind of accompanies this is pretty long, so I'm going to try to sum it down a little bit to highlight the points. There's a lot to the story that I don't think is necessary for the end result. So I'm going to attempt to just go over some of the important pieces, because the verse doesn't come until at the very end of the story. But again, like most of the stories, it requires that preface of what had happened in the story just so that the verse can make more sense. So this is definitely one of those occasions. So the story of this is about a daughter of a rich man and his wife back in the Buddhist time in King Bimbisara's kingdom. This lady was called Visakha. So one day, Visakha and her father and her grandmother and the retinue of attendants, because these are rich people, went and visited the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. And upon making their offerings and doing their ceremony of transferring the merit and listening to the Dharma talk from the Buddha, Visakha, who at the time was only 7 years old, her father and grandmother, and the mother. So the father, the mother, and the grandmother, and Visakha, the girl, she was 7 at the time. They all, and her retinue, all attained the first stage of sainthood, first stage of enlightenment, Sotapadana, stream enterer. And so once Visakha came of age, she married a rich man again from Savatthi. And this family that she married into were not a Buddhist family, which at the time would kind of be a deal breaker for a lot of kind of high elite people in society, that they would only marry into families of the same tradition or same religion. But I think at this point, it's not stated somewhere, but this is kind of my own observation, that she may have agreed to this marriage because she would have been moving to Savatthi, which is where the Buddha spent the majority of his time. And so she wanted to be close to the Buddha because she had a very strong affinity with the Buddha's teachings. So she moved to Savatthi with her husband, which typically also includes like their the parents-in-law as well, right? So the mother-in-law and the father-in-law also lived in the house. And so one day when a monk came by the house to request alms, the father-in-law ignored the monk, ignored his request for alms as he was eating food, right? And so Visakha, who had seen this, got up and went to this monk and told this bhikshu, the monk, "I am sorry, Venerable Bhikshu, my father-in-law only eats stale food." So in hearing this, Migara, who is the father-in-law, was very upset and was kind of offended by this and demanded that she leave the house. And she's like, "I ain't gonna leave this house. This is my house too." And so when she moved into the house with her husband and family, her father sent 8 elders with her as kind of people that would give her guidance and kind of go through, help her with decisions and whatnot. And so she had went and gathered these elders to kind of be like a forum, basically. Think of a courtroom, right? These elders were the judge, and then Visakha and her father-in-law were the defendant. And what's the other one called? The other one called, whatever the, huh? Plaintiff, thank you. Losing my mind. So, and so once the elders came by and sat down, the father-in-law spoke first, and he said, "While I was having my food in a gold bowl, Visakha said that I was taking stale food. For this offense, I'm sending her away." Where Visakha just kind of scoffed and replied to the elders that, "When I saw my father-in-law completely ignoring the bhikshu, the monk, standing for alms, I thought to myself that since my father-in-law was not doing any meritorious deeds in this existence, he was only eating the fruits of his past good deeds. So I said, my father-in-law only eats stale food," right? And so she was like, "Now, sirs, do you think that I am guilty?" And the elders found her not guilty, with that little striking hammer. And so after that, Visakha kind of announced that because she had absolute and unshakable faith in the Buddhist teaching, that she would not be living in a house that did not provide alms or show respect to monks, right? And so the father-in-law kind of conceded and allowed her to kind of do whatever she wanted. And so since then, she was able to provide alms for any of the monastics that came by for alms round. And then one day, and remember, the parents-in-law are not Buddhist, right? They followed, or at least the father-in-law followed, can't find the Pali word here, but he followed Brahmins that were called, there's a word here called that translates to naked ascetics, right? And so this was a tradition that the parents followed. And they were very against the Buddha, right? And they thought that the Buddha was teaching, was blasphemous to their religion. But anyway, so they didn't agree with the Buddha or didn't agree to providing respect to the Buddha or his disciples, his monastics. And so one day when she invited the Buddha and his disciples to come to the house for alms, for lunch, Visakha asked her father-in-law to join them right in the room for food, and he declined. And so then after the meal, typically when you invite monastics for a meal, the repayment is a dharma talk, right? Kind of a blessing afterward. And so once they were done with the meal and this dharma talk was about to happen, she went back to the father-in-law and said, please come and listen to the Buddha. He's about to give a Dharma talk. And so to him, he was thinking, I shouldn't decline her again for the second time. So he agreed, but he only agreed to listen to Buddha behind a curtain, as if that would make any difference, right? But he didn't want to be kind of in his presence, because then his teachers, the naked ascetics, would kind of admonish him for that. So he sat behind the curtain, and the Buddha gave his talk slightly directed toward him, because the Buddha knew he was there, right? And so he didn't completely ignore him. But it said that wherever you are, if you're in the vicinity of the Buddha, wherever you are, whether you're inside or outside, whether you're in, on the second floor, third floor, fourth, fifth floor, wherever you are, that you would be able to hear the Buddha, and it would sound as if the Buddha was talking to you directly, right? So even behind the curtain, the father-in-law knew, like he heard the sounds of the Buddha as if he was speaking directly to him face to face. And so while he was sitting there behind the curtain, listening to the Buddha's talk, he then, because he does have good merits, right? He does have good karma. So at this point, as he's listening to the Dharma talk by the Buddha, his good karma ripened, and he actually attained the first level of enlightenment as well, Sotapadana, extreme term. And so after that, he went out directly to the Buddha and bowed down to him and took refuge. And then even proclaimed that Visakha, who had been a devout disciple basically her entire life, he kind of made this announcement that he would treat her like his mother, right? Because she kind of birthed him into knowing of the Buddha and his Dharma. And so then, he converted, I guess, to Buddhism at the time. He took refuge and became a disciple of the Buddha. And then Visakha was, again, she was very rich all on her own too, by her family at least. And she would always try to provide the monastics and the Buddha with all their requisites, right? Requisites of cloth, of razors for shaving, and thread to sew their robes and whatnot, and filter for the water. And so she was always on point trying to provide those requisites for the monastics. And she even asked the Buddha that for any new monastics, any new monks that come into the monastery, that she would provide them a meal as kind of a congratulations, celebratory thing, right? And for any monks that were leaving town or leaving, kind of going on a journey, that she would want them to come to her house, and she would provide kind of their last meal before they would venture off to their journey. And there was a third one I can't think of. I can't think of the third one, but there were 3 requests that she made, and all 3 requests were granted. And then after some time, she gave birth. She had many kids, many sons and daughters and whatnot. And so, but she continued to do the good deeds for the monastery, for all the monks and nuns. And so at one point, kind of toward the end of her life, she accomplished her deeds. I'm trying to find the quote here really quick. So then after toward the end of her life, one of her final meal offerings, right? There was a meal offering ceremony that she called all her family members on that night, and she told them that all her wishes had been fulfilled and that she had nothing more to desire. And then she was reciting some verses of kind of praise to her efforts and her diligence in doing the good deeds for the benefit of the monastics and the community. And then she started to kind of circulate or go around the monastery, kind of just singing these verses. but she wasn't really singing. She was just kind of praising the merit of her deeds, praising that the Buddha was alive in her time, right? She was just kind of just very happy. And so when another monk saw her kind of walking around and singing, they're like, oh, look at Visakha, she's changed, she's singing now. And so they went back to the Buddha and they told the Buddha, because they're tattletales apparently, and like, hey, Visakha is losing her mind. She's singing. I think she's crazed. And the Buddha told him that she's not crazed. It's just that she had all her wishes come true, that she had made through previous lifetimes. And then he recollected a story in one of her previous lives. She was in the presence of Padumuttara Buddha, and her friend at the time during that lifetime was the chief lay female disciple of the monastery. So she was kind of the one that took care of everything and everyone. So she took care of, the watering bowls to clean them, and she did all the cleaning. She took care of the monks when they were sick, or provided medicine when they were sick, provided any comforts or requisites that they needed. So she was kind of the boss lady of the monastery in a way. And so Visakha in that past life, seeing her friend doing that, she herself had the aspiration to do the same thing as well, that she wanted to become a chief lay female disciple of the Buddha in the monastery. And so at that time she made that wish. And knowing this request, or knowing this wish they had, the Buddha at the time, kind of using transcendental powers, kind of saw her future and kind of acknowledged or confirmed that she will in a future life become a chief disciple of the Buddha. And then it's noted in a later existence, she also received the same assurance from Kassapa Buddha regarding her earnest wish. And so it was at that time where the Buddha concluded the discourse by saying that Visakha was strongly inclined to do good deeds and had done much more in her previous existences, just as an expert florist makes many garlands from a collection of flowers. I'll quickly read the verse again before I go into the commentary. So the verse goes, just as one can make many garlands from a heap of flowers, so too should a mortal, having been born, do many wholesome deeds. So this is one of those things where if you read it for the first time or read it at face value, it's not going to make much sense. And unfortunately, a big chunk of the Dhammapada is kind of like that, because it uses a lot of metaphors. It uses a lot of parables to connect to different teachings or topics and whatnot. So in this case, the imagery of flowers and the garland that the florist would make is symbolism to represent impermanence and beauty, right? We see flowers all the time. We just took down the flowers today, actually, that we have on the altars. But we have up the flowers, we have up the fruit, we have up other things as offerings, not to an incense, right? Not to beautify the place or the shrine or the altar, but it's symbolism that something as beautiful as a flower, right? Something as tasty as fruit, something as sweet smelling as the incense. All these, even though they're joyful and we enjoy them and we like them, but they are impermanent, and eventually they will die or disappear, right? So all these offerings, all the stuff you see as offerings on the altars are just all symbols or symbolism for impermanence, right? It's kind of the big underlying factor in Buddhism, is that everything's impermanence. And so we use this symbolism to remind ourselves of the fleeting nature of our lives, right? If you remember a few verses back, I think it was verse 48 or 49, Patipantaka, I think her name was, who was a wife of a Brahmin up in heaven, and she died and she came back to earth, and she knew of her past life with her husband up in heaven, and so all she wanted to do was do good deeds in her lifetime in order to go back and see her husband. And so after she died and she went back to the heaven, because she had died in the morning in that heavenly realm. And then when she was reborn, right, she spent, I think she was 70 or 75 when she died on earth. But when she was reborn back in heaven, only a few hours passed by, right? And so then her husband was like, where were you? I've been looking for you all day. She's like, well, I kind of died and I was reborn on earth. And then I died there and I came back to you. And he was like, you're only gone for a few hours. How'd you spend a whole lifetime? And if you remember from last time I was telling that story, that in heavenly realms or in higher realms of existence, time works differently, right? And so to them, a few hours is a whole lifetime for us. And so if we kind of go back to that story, we can use that as an example of just how short life is, right? How fleeting our life is. And 70 years, 80 years, 90 years of life isn't a very long time compared to the cosmic scale of things, right? 80 years for us is not even an ounce of time passing on a cosmological level, right? How many billions and billions of years did it take for us to even be here, right? That's nothing. As far as the Earth is concerned, the life of the Earth has only been alive in the first few days of January on the cosmic calendar, right? So if our entire 13 billion year old life on Earth is only the first few days of the January calendar of the cosmic scale, imagine how even shorter our lifespan, our 70, 80, 90 years of life, compared to that, seconds, fractions and fractions and fractions of seconds worth of one day on a cosmic level. And so when the Buddha gave the example of this garland, right? And we know what a garland is, right? Yeah, it's a flower necklace that people make to kind of show respect and honor and joyous occasions. And so just as a skillful garland maker can take a heap of flowers and craft many beautiful arrangements, so too a wise person takes the opportunities of life and creates abundant merit through wholesome deeds. So it's really just stating the importance of making or creating wholesome actions, right? Kusala kama. Kusala means wholesome. Kama just means action. So to do wholesome actions in life, right? By acts of generosity, moral discipline, and mental cultivation or meditation. So dana, sila, and bhavana, right? And so then it shows that, well, if you want to do wholesome actions, then we have to follow or live a virtuous life, a moral life. And in order to have a moral life or understand the morality of life, then we need to practice bhavana, meditation, or contemplation. And then once we have a clear understanding of the fleeting of life or of our short lives and understanding the worth of impermanence, then it should kind of encourage us to want to work harder and to do more, right? And so we provide compassion, we provide generosity and loving kindness and whatnot. And so since life is temporary and uncertain, right, it's supposed to urge us, it's supposed to kind of ignite this flame within us that time truly is short. Our life is truly short, right? And that we should use our time wisely by encouraging or engaging in virtuous acts. In the Pali verse of this, it's toward the end, there's a statement that says, Jatana Machena, which means a mortal has been born. And so these two words alone, right, Jatana Machena, shows us that life is inevitably going to end. There is death, right? Death is certain. If something is born, that means something dies, right? And so since birth leads us to old age, sickness, and death, right? And our goal of our practice is to escape that cycle, right? To stop being reborn over and over again in this existence of samsara. And by the only way of doing that, to achieve that ending of rebirth, is to practice by the penetration of the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path and 12 links of dependent origination. But this is kind of a motivation to engage in good actions, to do good deeds before time runs out, right? Just like a garland is made, it's made from freshly cut flowers. But if you leave it alone for too long, they're going to start to wither, right? They're useless. You can't make a garland out of it. And so the garland maker quickly, and carefully sews those flowers into the garland reed, right? And makes this beautiful arrangement of flowers. And so the Buddha is telling us that Buddha says, by performing good deeds, a person cultivates punna, which is merit, which leads to favorable future rebirths, mental purification, and ultimately liberation, nirvana. That good deeds are not limited to large, grand gestures, but also include small daily acts of kindness, compassion, and wisdom. This is quite literally pointing back to the 6 perfections, the 6 paramitas. The first perfection is dana, generosity, right? And this is true giving. This isn't giving out of the sake of giving, right? This is true giving. What is true giving? Actual question. What is true giving?
Not expecting anything in return.
Exactly. True giving is giving without an expectation of a return, without an expectation of even a thank you, without an expectation of even a glance, right? And so it could be anything. And eventually, when I get to the 6 perfections in the future, it's not a concise full list, but it lists things that we don't really think of that we do on a daily basis where we think it's generous, right? And just like the Buddha said, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It doesn't have to mean you have to donate your entire net worth or your entire property or whatever, right? Like these big events. It could just be holding the door open, right? Or grabbing something from the top shelf for someone at the grocery store, or helping them open their trunk in the parking lot, right? Or just even a smile to someone who may look like they need a smile or a hug, right? A simple smile to someone scientifically proves that it can change their mood, right? When they see a genuine smile toward them from someone else, it chemically alters their mood in that situation. So we know just the gesture of smile is enough to change someone, or at least hype up their mood just a little bit. And so the Buddha goes back, it's like, you don't have to give money, you don't have to give property, you don't have to make grand gestures, right? The simple act of smiling, a simple act of just helping someone that is in need, the simple act of even providing dharma is an act of generosity, right? So if you're in a situation where you're able to provide some dharmic guidance or teaching to someone, then do it, right? It may not penetrate them, it may not really do much for them, but if they're able to at least just get a taste of what you're trying to explain, then that in itself is a generous act. And so the whole verse is really just going back and emphasizing the importance of doing good deeds. Because the Buddha had said that if people knew as I know the good of giving, what good comes from charity and generosity, no one would eat a meal without sharing it with whoever was around that was worthy of needing a meal. So this is emphasizing that if only you knew how much merit is accumulated by doing generous acts, that you would never do anything that is not beneficial toward that merit, right? Just think of, I don't know about you, but I haven't pre-monk code when I had more time. I volunteered a lot. My favorite place to volunteer was either the food bank or Haven for Hope. It's downtown. Those are my 2 favorite spots. And I've been volunteering since I moved here, way back in 2006. but it's such a genuine, at least for me, I believe, it's such a genuine act of just giving, right? You're helping people that need the help. You're doing it for the benefit of others. You're not doing it to make yourself feel better. You're not doing it to show off. Because if you're doing that to feel better about yourself, or to show up like, hey, look at me, I'm volunteering, I'm being a good person, you have zero merit. You actually get negative karma from that. And so it's important to have a correct mindset and a correct intention when we are giving, right? Again, it's not for the sake of giving. It's giving just, it's not just for the sake of giving. It's giving out of true generosity of the spirit of giving. My point is if you have volunteered in the past, especially at some organization or event that you hold dear to or you like, right? Just think of your mood, right? Just think of the natural smile that you have during these things when you're helping, when you're doing good things, right? And when you do that, when you're in an environment that you are enjoying yourself, you are feeling really good about what you're doing, you're feeling really great about the activities that you're doing, whatever it is that you're volunteering for, that natural kind of glow that we get from true helping, right? From truly helping, from truly being generous, is contagious. Because then your happy mood will cause other people to be in a happy mood, right? And then other people will see that happy mood and it will continue on. So it's a domino effect. But the opposite also works. So if you're in a bad mood and you're ruining someone's mood, then now they're in the bad mood and they're going to ruin someone else's mood. And again, it has a domino effect. Which would you prefer? Good mood or bad mood? We'll probably assume it's good mood, yes? And so it's a reminder to try to recollect the true spirit of giving when we're in situations where we can give, right? We're not always in a situation where we can give, right? Especially if it's monetary, right? If it includes money, sometimes it's out of our hands or we don't have enough or we can't, really don't have the means to provide money as a donation, as a form of generosity. But again, other forms of generosity are just as equal, at least from a Buddhist perspective, right? Some people are like, no, I don't want your talk, I just want money, right? And so maybe not everyone would appreciate the non-money giving, but it is still beneficial for you, for your own merit accumulation, your own karma. Anyway, life is short. It's kind of the conclusion of this verse is life is short. And even though to us life seems long, right? Especially if you're living up to 70, 80, 90 years, but your lifespan is not guaranteed. You do not know that tomorrow you will wake up again. You do not know that tomorrow you won't find out bad news about your health. Tomorrow you do not know that the world is going to end, right? You don't know these things. These things are not guaranteed. And so if you take that seriously and you truly contemplate that life truly is not long enough, then that should provide enough encouragement to want to do more, to do a lot as quickly as possible. And it's not in a sense that you want to do and help everyone around and and give away all your money overnight, but just in a personal sense, right? Especially if you're here at the temple, I'm assuming that if you're here and you come back, means that you have some affinity with the Buddhist practice. You see some benefit that is providing to your life, right? And so what I mean by trying to expedite that is by trying to expedite your process of practice and trying to gain enlightenment as quickly as possible, right? Because if you do die tomorrow, well, then you've kind of wasted a good chunk of your life not practicing. By the time you start practicing, it's a little bit too late, right? And unfortunately, I see that a lot with older people, especially my own father, right? I mean, I remember growing up and we'd do like religious stuff here and there, but he wasn't like a very religious person. But now that he's older, right, he's in his late 60s, I think. I don't know how old he is. I'm assuming in his late 60s. Now he's becoming a little bit more concerned with religion, right? And so, to me at least, I think that is not, it's still a good thing, right? But you've wasted a lot of time. Now you're playing catch up, essentially, right? And it's a little different in Buddhism because Buddhism is so expansive. There's so much information, right? It is incomprehensible to try to accumulate everything in one lifetime, okay? We have tens and thousands of sutras, discourses. There's absolutely no way that you would be able to read them all in one lifetime. Maybe you've read them back to back, day in and day out, and you've never slept for 50 years, then maybe you'd be able to. But unfortunately, we need sleep, we need to eat, and we need rest, right? And so we can't do that. And so that alone should be able to, I hope, encourage you to want to do as much as you can in this life by practicing generosity, by living a life of moral conduct, right? In this case, following the precepts, if you have precepts. And treating people with loving kindness and compassion. Those are kind of the pillars of ensuring that you have a solid and successful spiritual life. Now, you can take it as you can make it as dramatic as possible, right? I made it as dramatic as possible and became a monk, right? You can't get any more dramatic than that, that's right. But I came to an aha moment many, many, many years ago. And I've tasted the impermanence of life. And I was like, my life now as a layperson is not enough. I will not be able to accomplish my spiritual aspirations and my goals as a layperson. And so I had everything in life that I needed. I'm thankful I was very privileged. I worked hard in my life and I built it up, right? And had everything I want. I had zero need to do anything. All I wanted to do was eat and travel. I still want to eat and travel now, but it's not as much as before. But I knew that life is short, right? Life is so short to us, and to push back or hold back time to practice when you have time or when you feel like you're in the mood to, it wasn't enough for me, right? And I understand it's difficult for lay people to try to commit more than they're able to because you have obligations in life, whether it's family, friends, kids, or significant others, and work, and all this stuff. So you have a lot of obligations outside of your own spiritual practice that unfortunately do, to a degree, hinder your practice quite a bit, right? Especially if you're in a troubling situation in life, whether you're getting married, the stress of getting married and planning the wedding is one thing, whether you're divorcing and the stress of divorce and battling this and that is cause for anxiety, whether you're switching jobs or you got laid off. Like there's a plethora of things that can happen that are not conducive to your practice. And those non-conducive environments and causes and issues are going to hinder the mood of your practice, right? Like, I have too much going on. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to read this book. I don't have time to study this teaching, right? We make excuses to validate whatever's happening in our lives as an excuse to not practice. But that alone is the fault. Because you do have time to practice. You do have time to read that book. You do have time to meditate. You're just not allowing yourself to have that time because you're not in the mood. Well, guess what? Not in the mood is not going to get you to enlightenment. So you have to ask yourself, how badly do I want to become enlightened? How badly do I want to sever all the causes and sufferings and dissatisfactions in my life? Not to say that you have to become a monk or nun to do that, right? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we have to at least give ourselves enough time and effort and diligence to actually practice in order for just that taste of freedom, just once, right, will encourage you enough to want to get more and more of it, right? So when I had that taste and that clarity, right, and that realization, I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do now. This is it. 12 years later, I'm still here. I'm not going back. I know exactly what I want to do and what I want to happen. And so thankfully, during this transition to monastic life, I've attained a lot of wisdom and clarity, and it has cemented even more my commitment to the practice and to gaining more insight and wisdom into this practice, and having more enlightened moments. Because that's just the thing. When you have just a taste of one little enlightened moment during meditation, or even during mundane practices, right? I think it was last week or during one of the classes, sutra class, I was saying, you can become enlightened, right? You can have a very grand realization by doing mundane things like cooking or cleaning, right? So there are moments in mundane activity where you can have a moment of clarity. And when you have it, if it's true moment of clarity, if it's a true moment of enlightenment, right? Because people misunderstand that enlightenment is this big, grand aha gesture, that there's going to be fireworks and sirens and balloons and cheer from the heavens that you come enlightened, right? Unfortunately, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. But enlightenment comes to us in very small amounts at first, right? When we first start to practice, and we're truly practicing, and we are being diligent with our meditation practice, and you're getting better at it, and you're really honing your meditation, honing your concentration, then those aha moments, those little sparks of enlightenment come, but very sporadically and only for a few seconds, right? But those few seconds are enough to tell you, okay, this is working. Something is happening. I want more of it. So that in itself should encourage you to want to go harder and quicker and deeper into the practice, so that those little aha moments get larger and larger and larger until they're finally large enough where it's permanent. Now you are fully enlightened. Okay? So don't think that enlightenment is this grand thing. No, it happens in sparks. I can guarantee you that moments of enlightenment has happened in your life in one way, shape, or form. But because we're unskilled enough, you didn't recognize it as a moment of enlightenment, right? Think of an activity that you did where you just had a moment of complete clarity, and you knew exactly what was happening, what was going on, and everything just seemed so clear and obvious, okay? That is a moment of enlightenment, depending on the situation, of course. But just think of the requisite of that. It's a state of complete clarity, of complete openness, a complete understanding of reality of whatever is happening that you're doing, right? A complete clarity is a moment of enlightenment. But it comes and goes very quickly, right? And so our goal here is to extend those moments so that when they do show up, that they get longer and longer and longer, or at least you get more of it, right? And it becomes larger and more expansive, and then it sticks. And then you become fully enlightened. You become an arhat, or you become a bodhisattva or a Buddha. But even, I was mentioning to Max the other day, or maybe it was yesterday, last night, that we were talking about, what was your question? If you become enlightened, that you would have to become a monastic, right? Is that what you said? I was like, no, not necessarily. And my reason to this is, as a layperson, it is completely possible that a layperson can attain the first 3 of the 4 stages of enlightenment. So you can become a Sotapadana, Sakadagami, and an Anagami. Stream enter, stream enter, once returner, and a non-returner. Okay? These are the first 3 of the 4 stages of enlightenment. These can happen as a layperson, right? Because you've severed the first 5 of the 10 fetters. But the remaining 5 of the fetters to become an arhat, a fully enlightened person, can only happen as a monastic. So don't think that you have to come in and shave your head and wear robes to become enlightened. I mean, it will be more conducive and you'll probably become enlightened much quicker, but depending on your goals and your aspirations of what you want to achieve and attain, you can kind of ascertain what you want to do in that sense. But it's very often, that when a layperson does at least attain the first stage of Satipatthana, of stream-enter, that it's a natural reaction to ordain, right? Because now they've tasted the taste of enlightenment. They want more of it. And they know the only way to have a conducive environment and a perfect environment is at a monastery. Because then you have elder monastics that can help teach you and guide you through your meditation practice and through your studies. You have someone that's there to help you keep account on yourself, right? So if you're slacking off, you're becoming lazy, there's your monastic brothers and sisters there to help encourage you and push you forward. So it becomes a much easier way to quickly go through the levels. And there's many stories that I've already covered in the Dhammapada where that exact scenario had happened. When the Buddha would go to a village and give a Dharma talk, and there'd be a handful of people in the audience that became Satipatthānas, then they immediately went to the Buddha and asked for ordination. And within a very short amount of time, all those instances, as far as I'm aware of, they've all attained arhatship, full enlightenment. Because when you're able to, let me step back a bit. If you're a layperson trying to attain the first, second, third levels of enlightenment, it has to go in that succession order, right? However, if you attain stream-enter, the first level, and then ordain, your chances of it fully enlightened is you skip levels 2 and 3, and you can go right into arhat, full enlightenment. So it's kind of one benefit of ordaining is you can skip some of those levels, because it's through the practice where those fetters become eradicated as a monastic, because you have the environment, you have the resources and the means to overcome those fetters at a much quicker pace. I went off topic a lot. My point is to practice good deeds, to continue doing good deeds, and doing good deeds out of the true generosity of yourself, right? Not to do it just to do it. Because think of your intention. Eventually, when I get to the 6 perfections, and I was scrolling through one of my notebooks the other day, I was studying, and I came across my entry for the first perfection of generosity. My very first sentence for that note was, if you have to think about it, it's not true generosity. So if you see someone that needs help and you're like, should I help her? Do I have time to help her? And you do it, not true generosity. If someone's struggling, get something from the top shelf, this old lady, old man, like, I don't have time, I'm really in a rush. I don't have time to pick up one little item and hand it to this person. That's not true generosity, right? So think of the intention, even when you're giving. What is the intention behind that act of giving? Why are you giving? Are you giving it just to help someone else, right? Which is still a good thing, right? Even if you have the reaction of, do I have time to help, and you do help, I mean, you're still helping, you're still doing a good thing, but you're not gaining as much merit as you would if you did it through wholesome generosity, right? So always question yourself. And again, this goes back to, I'm always saying, always question yourself. Whatever desire you have, whatever thought you have, whatever perception of something or someone you have, any ideas, any struggles, any likes and dislikes, any pleasures or pain, anything that arises in the mind, question it, right? Where does it come from? Why is it arising? Why do I think like this? Why do I feel like this? Why do I like this and not like that? Why do I like him and not like her? right? Always question yourself, because it's only through that questioning, through that contemplation, that analysis of your mind, where you can start dissecting the pieces of the mind and see how it actually works, right? And that's one of the reasons why an arhat can only become an arhat as a monastic, because the very last fetter is ignorance. And ignorance is ignorance is the main factor of our suffering. It is the main factor of why we are reborn over and over and over again, is because of ignorance. And ignorance here means not knowing. Okay? And so it's not knowing of the true reality of things. It's not knowing the true relationship or the interconnectedness of things and people. It is not knowing how to fully practice the Dharma or to understand the Dharma. And so it's a big topic, right? And it is the number one reason why we all suffer, is because of our ignorance. But that suffering lessens significantly as you practice more, as you start to meditate more and to truly question yourself and question your ideas and thoughts and opinions and perceptions, to see the true reality of things, and getting down and dirty into the mind, right? Oh, man, I really want to talk some more on it, but I don't have time. Ignorance is a huge thing, okay? Let's just stick with that. Hey, ignorance is the big thing. It's the reason why you're suffering. But again, this kind of links back to the moments of clarity that we have, those little sparks of enlightenment, those little sparks of aha moments, right? That is clarity from ignorance. Yes, it's temporary, it didn't last very long, but there was a clear separation of something that was once ignorant to complete clarity. And again, it only lasts a few seconds and it switches back, but now you have that realization and you can feed off of it, or you can add to it, right? So that way next time you meditate, you practice, you can recollect and bring back that aha moment that you had and work off of it and add to it, right? Then those little moments start to get larger and larger and last longer and longer until it's finally complete. You become an arhat. Or if you're lucky, you continue on to Bodhisattvahood, then you complete Samyak Sambodha, Anuttara Samyak Sambodha, full complete enlightenment, and become a Buddha. It's a process. It's not easy. Definitely not easy. But it is extremely gratifying when you have those realizations and you know something is working. And I hope that's the case if you all continue to come back, is because you know something works. There's clarity in your practice and what you are doing that provides the fuel to continue your practice. Okay, I will actually stop talking now. Questions, concerns, emotional outbursts.
I have a question. What's the explanation behind some people, as you just said, recalling their past lives? And do you have an expectation of recalling this life when you are born again?
I have zero expectations for nothing, for anything. There's a lot of times where people are obsessed with knowing their past lives. Like, I want to know what past life was. Was I a good person? Was I a bad person? Was I a king? Was I a queen? Was I a servant?
Is that true when they say that this lady knew about her past life?
Yes, because she was enlightened, right? So even at the first level of enlightenment, I take that back. There are 6 powers, or 6, it's called powers, but it's not like actual power, but there are 6 powers that are attained when you become an arhat, fully enlightened person. And one of them is knowing your past lives, okay? And it's not a really important power, because there's no reason to really care about your past lives, but it provides kind of like the framework of how you got to this point, right? You can see all the good deeds and things you've done in the past to support and help your progress in life after life after life to become enlightened. And so that's one of the reasons why we see a lot of instances of enlightened monks or Buddhas telling other people of their past lives to encourage them to be like, hey, in the past life you made these vows, you've done all these meritorious deeds and good deeds and wholesome karma, and this is why you're here at this point in your life. This is why you have this position, or this is why you have this attainment, or whatever it may be, right? It's just for informational use, right? But there's no other than that to kind of help support and encourage people by providing them their past life story. It's just that, to help encourage them and let them know that they are on the right path. But for yourself, I mean, I don't care what my past life was.
I mean, I'm not asking about myself. I mean, I'm asking, do we have Buddhists alive today that claim that they know their past life?
I don't know.
Or they just don't say.
They probably don't say. This is another time I was talking to Max yesterday, right? Because he has this habit of going out into the world and asking, are they enlightened? Right? He's like, I wonder who in this crowd is enlightened. And I always keep telling him that's the wrong question to ask. Because it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter who is enlightened. The correct question is, why are they not enlightened?
Aren't we supposed to see the Buddha in everybody?
That's correct, but that doesn't mean that everybody is enlightened yet, right? Because now you're focusing on one person. If you're asking who is enlightened, you're only focusing on one, where the question is, why are they not enlightened, which focuses on the whole, right? To become a Buddha, you have to worry about the collective people, not just one person, okay? But are there enlightened people in the world? Yes, I've met a couple. But they don't go out there claiming. If someone is enlightened, they will never say that they're enlightened. The only way an enlightened person can verify their enlightenment is by another enlightened person verifying that they are enlightened. That's it. That's the only way we can confirm enlightenment.
And then nobody cares.
It's not that nobody cares, but they don't go out marketing it.
I mean, it's not like you go humbling people.
No. But the problem with that is, and there's been a couple of people actually that came to this temple many, many years ago claiming that they're enlightened, that they're Buddhas. I'm like, no, you're not. Because an enlightened person will never admit that they're enlightened.
They don't care.
They don't care, right? They've lost those fetters of self. Exactly. But if you are practiced enough and you're cultivated enough in yourself and your practice, that if you are in the presence of an enlightened person, you will know. And that's, I'm not trying to be ignorant here or arrogant, but that's what I met. There was a nun, she now lives in Houston, that she's an enlightened nun. She's enlightened, right? But again, she doesn't go claiming it. She's just a teacher. She has a temple and she has disciples and monastics and lay people. I can't explain it to you. It's not something I can explain. Again, it's a feeling, right? And you just know by their demeanor, by the way they speak, by the way they walk, by the way they sit, by the way they interact with the people, by the way they give the teaching, you will just know, right? But I only knew because I cultivated enough in my practice where I can recognize that, right? I can see that. And I've met her once as a monk, and I don't believe if I was not a monk and I met her, I would not have known that she was enlightened, because I didn't have the conducive environment. Why?
Do you recall your past life?
Why?
No, because it's kind of nice to know.
No, it's why.
I mean,
why would?
I want to be enlightened myself. I mean, I wouldn't know about it, and I wouldn't know how to do it. I mean, it's better from someone that it's actually enlightened rather than from a book.
That's true, but most people, again, you won't care about your past lives when you're enlightened. You just won't care. I don't care. And the reason why I say that, not the reason why I say that, but like a good, you can calculate to a degree how your past lives were according to your present life right now. Because again, you're reborn according to your karma. Okay? So if in past lives you've gained enough karma, good karma, that you have guaranteed fortunate future births, right? Rebirths. And so now that now that we're in America, supposedly good country, and you have all these means of being able to do what you want, you can go where you want, you can buy what you want, right? You have a pretty solid life, right? It's not perfect, right? You have ups and downs and you have problems with family and work and friends, but in general, it's a pretty good life to have, right? So you can say, okay, well, maybe in the past life I did enough good deeds where I'm able to have comfort in this type of life that I am, compared to people who live in third world countries or who live in complete poverty, who live on streets. Their past lives were not sufficient enough for them to be reborn in a place where that they have opportunities like we do. So you can judge how your past lives work according to your present life. That's how I know of my past lives. I don't see them, I don't recollect, I know I'm not fully enlightened to see that, but I know, I can have an educated guess that in my past life, I was probably, I hope, a good person that led me to this place and led me to my...
Going back to the teaching, to today's teaching, I mean, you need to make sure that you're not just eating from your past life. I mean, you need to eat fresh food, not just...
Exactly, right? Just like the story said, the father-in-law was only enjoying the fruits from his past karma. Because in his past karma, he did good deeds that when he was reborn to his present life, he was rich, he was born to a rich family, and he has all these things that he didn't really work for. He's just feeding off past life, right? But in his future life, unless he changes his way, he's going to go down, right? So again, now we're in this place where we have the opportunities and the resources to do good, right? We can afford, again, not necessarily in monetary form, right, by giving money, but we have other resources to provide merit, right, to do good deeds. And that will guarantee you to, I hope, I don't want to say guarantee you, but that will at least allow the potential for a better life in your next life. If you do more good in that life, then you continue on doing doing more good and becoming better and better into your practice. And then one day you become enlightened. When you become enlightened, you can go back past lives like, this is where it all started. See, it was good this time. I didn't kill that person when I wanted to murder them. I didn't push my wife down the stairs, right? You know all the good and bad things you've done. Okay.
That comment to something you said about knowing if there's an enlightened person or not, and how that would make you feel. I kind of had some experiences like that in my own life where I had these questions about things like, oh, what's the point of the universe? Is there a creator? All this stuff. They're kind of like unknowable questions. I kind of like fixated on them. It was destroyed the way I thought about some stuff. But then I came to a realization it was like, if I knew the answer to these things, would it actually help my life out? And I came to the conclusion like, no, I don't think it would. Even if
It would be nice. I mean,
it would be nice, yes, but like if I knew there was a God, if I knew the point of the universe, if I knew like black and white, if I knew these things, I don't think it would really necessarily help me because I'm like, well, now that I know that, I'm probably just going to go about my own life doing what I would normally do.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
knowing that there's an enlightened person, I guess I see your point like, oh, it's nice to know that, but it doesn't necessarily help my practice.
Oh, absolutely. It would not make any difference. But wouldn't it be nice? I mean,
Yeah.
That's where we disagree. I don't care.
I mean, I'm not enlightened enough not to care. I mean, to not care. I mean, so to me, it would be nice. I mean,
well, the reason why I don't care, because it's in the past. It happened. There's nothing you can do to change it. Whether you did good or bad in past lives, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't change anything about your present life or the future lives. It's already done. It's complete, right? What you need to worry about is, well, I'll worry about past lives when I need to worry about them, right? But for now, you're more concerned with your present life and future lives. And the only reason you're going to have a good present and future lives is by doing good deeds, wholesome actions.
that's fine. And that's very pragmatic. But at least myself, I do have a love for knowledge, and it's really nice to have some knowledge.
Well, to Max's
Even
point,
if I don't know anything with it.
I suppose, but to Max's point, it doesn't add value to your practice. It's just a nice to know. It's not a need to know. Okay? So when it's a need to know, worry about it. Doesn't do anything. Yeah. Mm.
There's stubborn.
Mm.
I don't know. I just feel like it.
You're curious about the wrong thing.
No, but I get it. I totally
Yeah, no, I go. I'm just teasing you.
get it.
Oh man, I was going to say something else. I totally forgot what it was. The only thing I know for sure that in my own past life is that I was a monk. I know that for 100% sure.
Now you were?
I was a monk.
Okay.
I was a monk. And but I feel like I was a monk in later life. I didn't ordain as young as I did this time. And so now part of my monastic vows is I will be reborn and become a monk again at a younger age. So this time around, I ordain at 30. My next lifetime, I want to ordain at 20. Lifetime after that, I'll ordain as soon as I'm able to, right? So I'm giving myself a countdown, essentially. But yeah, that and maybe, I don't know, I was fat or something in past life because I love food. And now, thankfully, I'm not fat yet, but I do eat a lot. Anyway, we've overspoken, so we will transfer the merits and then go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merits of all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. You'll be chanting the aspirations to Mantabhadra, so page 281. Inking or belling? Okay. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of the. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness and transcend all anxiety. anxiety and sorrow. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. In gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space, and may it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted, mindful, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all Buddhas now show their perfect body. Homage to the incense cloud canopy Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattvas. Homage to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realm and the of empty space and 3 periods of time. Homage to the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, Maitreya, honored future Buddha, Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, great conduct Bodhisattva, whole Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Homage to Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, restored great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea-like Bodhisattvas. Namo, great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo, great compassionate Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo, great compassionate and Bodhisattvas. Namo Ratnatrayaya, Namo Avalokiteshvaraya, Sattvaya Mahakarunikaya, sarva mana mana mahi mahi hridayam koro koro kat doro doro vijati maha vijati dara dara diri nishvaraya chala chala mama bhima moktela heya he shina shina hacham prashari visha vishvam prashaya horo horo ma horo horo he sara sara siri siri soro soro bodhiya bodhiya bodhaya bodhaya maitraya narakindi navaya mana swaha siddhaya swaha maha siddhaya swaha siddha yogeshwaraya swaha narakindi swaha marana swaha sira simha mukaya swaha sarva maha siddhaya swaha chakra swaha padma kasaya swaha narakindi vagaraya swaha mavadi sankaraya swaha namo ratnatrayaya namo advarokiteshvaraya swaha om siryanto mantra padaya swaha. Skip down to the verse for opening sutra. The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Muni Buddha. Namo Samanta Bhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samanta Bhadra Bodhisattva, Namo Samanta Bhadra Bodhisattva. The aspiration of Samanta Bhadra Bodhisattva with purity of body, speech, and mind, I bow to all the heroic Buddhas of the past, present, and future, without exception, in every world, in all the 10 directions, by the power of this aspiration of Samanta Bhadra, I bow with as many bodies as there are atoms in the pure lands of all those victorious Buddhas manifest my mind, and I pay homage to all of. I conceive the entire realm took true to be completely filled with enlightened ones on each atom. I imagine there to be as many Buddhas as atoms in the pure, each Buddha surrounded by many Bodhisattvas. I honor all these blissful lords, praising their perfection with the sounds of an ocean of varied melodies, an ocean of endless praise. I offer to those heroic Buddhas the finest flowers, garlands, music, and ointments, excellent canopies, choice lamps, and the best incense. I offer as well to those victorious ones of all excellent things, the finest robes and fragrances, and heaps of sweet-smelling powders as high as Mount Meru. By the power of my faith in the deeds of Samanta Bhadra, I prostrate and present vast and unequaled offerings to each of the victorious Buddhas. I confess every type of wrong that I have done, thought, word, or deed, under the influence of desire, anger, or ignorance. I rejoice in the meritorious deeds of all Buddhas of the 10 Bodhisattvas, Priteka Buddhas, Arhats, Shavakas, and all sentient beings. I request the enlightened protectors to have the detachment of Buddhahood teach those who intend to manifest the final nirvana to remain for as many eons as there are atoms in all the pure lands for the benefit and happiness of all living beings. May whatever small amount of virtue I may have gained from prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseech, attaining perfect enlightenment, may I worship the Buddhas of the past and those now present in the worlds of the 10 directions. May those who come quickly to fulfill their aspiration and reach Buddhahood by traversing the stages of enlightenment. May all the worlds of the 10 directions become pure and filled with Bodhisattva and victorious Buddhas who proceed to the royal tree of enlightenment. May all living beings in the 10 directions always be happy and free of sickness. May the display of the Dharma be in harmony with the needs of all living beings and fulfill their hopes. May I perform all the deeds of enlightenment and remember all my lives in all states of existence and lives after death, migration, and rebirth. May I always embrace spiritual life. May I follow all the victorious Buddhas and perfect all the deeds of Samantabhadra, pure in the immaculate deeds of morality. May my conduct always be flawless and without fault. May I teach the Dharma in every tongue, in whatever sounds are understood by living beings, in the language of the gods, nagas, demons, spirits, and human beings. May I always diligently and patiently perform the perfections. May I never disregard to attain enlightenment and completely remove whatever faults may obscure it, freed from karma defilement, actions of demons, as a lotus is unsoiled by the mire. So in every rebirth in the world, may I proceed unhindered like the sun and moon in the clear sky throughout all the lands in all the direct. May the sufferings of the lower realms be completely relieved, establishing beings in happiness. Work for the benefit of all living beings, fully accomplishing the activities of enlightenment. May I work in harmony with the activities of all beings. May I practice and demonstrate the deeds of Samantabhadra throughout all future eons. May I associate with those whose activities are similar to mine. May we act all in thought, word, and deed, and may our aspirations be as one. May those friends who wish to help me straight the deeds of Samantabhadra always meet me again, and may I never cause them pain. May I always personally behold the victorious Buddhas, those guardians surrounded by Bodhisattva, and without tiring in all future eons. May I always present the magnificent offerings. May I always hold the Buddha's sacred Dharma and illuminate the deeds of enlightenment. May I train in the practice of Samantabhadra in all future eons through rebirth in all states of existence. May I gather endless stores of merit and wisdom. May I become an inexhaustible treasure of all virtues of method, wisdom, concentration, and liberation. May I always behold as many pure lands as there are at present in each pure land, with inconceivable Buddha sitting in the midst of their Bodhisattva. The activities of enlightenment in this way, may I be able to see everywhere, even on every mote of dust, countless Buddhas of the past, present, and future, limitless pure lands and endless eons. May I always heed the pure speech of the victorious Buddha, which holds within each world the totality intelligence so as to the endless melody of speech when the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future turn the wheel of Dharma. May I accomplish the Bodhisattva's practice of entering the past, present, and future in a fraction of a sec. May I enter all the future eons in a single instant. May I behold all the heroic Buddhas of the past, present, and future in a single instant. May I always perform their activities through the power of liberation from illusion. May I perceive upon a single act the perfect design of the pure realms of the past, present, and future. Thus may I enter into the realms of the victorious Buddhas in all directions. May the illuminators of the worlds of the future realize this age of Buddhahood, of turning the and of the profound peace of nirvana. And may I always be in their presence. May I acquire the perfectly accomplished powers of enlightenment, miraculous swiftness, the power of perfection of every spiritual path, and the power of all virtuous qualities. May I acquire the power of pervasive love, the power of the merit of every virtue, the power of all transcendental wisdom, and the powers of perfect knowledge, method, and meditation. May the power of action be utterly pure up, the power of passions utterly subdued, the power of demons utterly destroyed, and the power of the deeds of Dhammapada perfect. May the ocean of lands be purified, the ocean of beings liberated, the ocean of Dharma realized, and the ocean of wisdom fully attained. May the ocean of practice be purified, and the oceans of aspirations accomplished. May the oceans of Buddha worshipped and the deeds of enlightenment tirelessly performed. May I completely fulfill all perfect aspirations to enlightened activity in order to attain the stage of the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future, according to the deeds of Dhammapada. The eldest son of the victorious Buddhas is called Dhammapada. I dedicate all these victorious actions that my deeds may be like his. May my body, speech, activities, and environment always be pure in my eye. To this excellent aspiration of Dhammapada, may I tirelessly accomplish the virtuous deeds of Dhammapada and the aspirations of the Bodhisattva Manjushri throughout all future. No limit to my activities, may there be no limit to my virtues through limitless perception. May I accomplish all miraculous deeds. The limit is like the limit of open space. May the limit of my aspirations be equal to the limit of their activities and passions. Whoever offers to the victorious Buddhas all the perfect joys of gods and men in the infinite realms of the 10 directions, adorned with jewels for as many eons as there are atoms in those realms, they shall gain great merit. Whoever hears this greatest dedication prayer and is inspired by faith to intensely desire supreme enlightenment shall gain even higher and holier merit. Whoever recites this aspiration of Dhammapada will never again endure hellish rebirth, will abandon all evil friends, and will soon behold the Buddha Amitabha. They will gain all benefits, live in happiness, attain precious human rebirth, and soon become like Dhammapada himself. Even those who in ignorance committed deemable sins will soon be completely purified by reciting this aspiration of Dhammapada. They will achieve perfect wisdom, a radiant countless eternal form, auspicious physical marks, and a noble birth, profane and devilish despair of complete enlightenment in whatever way valiant Panchoshi and Samantabad know how to transfer merit. So do I dedicate all of my own virtues that I might train to be like them. Through this dedication, praises by the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future, I dedicate all of these roots of virtue to accomplishing the deeds of Samantabad. At the moment of my death, may all obscurations be removed, that I may behold the Buddha Amitabha and go to the pure land of perfect bliss. That blissful land may I completely fulfill all of these aspirations and benefit all beings as long as the universe reigns joyful there in the blessed assembly of the Buddhas. May I be reborn like the holy ones from an exquisite lotus, and may the Buddha Amitabha himself enlightenment. May I therefore this benefits for living beings in all the 10 directions by the power of perfect wisdom in its myriad incarnations, through whatever small virtue I have by reciting this aspiration of Samantabhadra. May all the virtuous aspirations of living beings be accomplished in a single instant through the boundless merit gained by so dedicate these aspirations of Samantabhadra. May the countless beings drowning in the torrent of suffering reach the stage of Amitabha. May this greatest of dedication prayers benefit beings. May reciting this ornament of Samantabhadra release all beings from the suffering of the lower realms. Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Namo Samantabhadra Sattva. Namo Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. The 10 great vows of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra: to worship and respect all Buddhas, who make praises to the thus come ones, who practice profound giving of offerings, to repent and reform all karmic hindrances, to rejoice and follow in merit and virtue, to request that the Dharma will be turned, to request that the Buddhas remain in the world, follow the Buddha's teachings, to constantly accord with all living beings, to transfer all merit and virtue universally. Om Samaya Svam, Om Samaya Svam, Maya Svam, Om Samaya Svam, Om Samaya Svam, Om Samaya Svam, Om Samaya Svam. Heart of the Prajnaparamita, the Bodhisattva Avadokita, being in the deep course of Prajnaparamita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill-beingness and Shariputra. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness. Then form the same is true with feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreased. Therefore in emptiness there is neither form nor feelings, no perception nor mental formation. Your ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no understanding, no attain, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattva's ground in Prajnaparamita find no obstacles for their having no obstacles. They overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodh. Therefore one should know that perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill-being. Mantra Prajnaparamita should therefore be proclaimed. Gate Gate Para Gate Para Samgate Bodhiswaha Gate Gate Para Gate Samgate Bodhi Swaha Gate Gate Para Samgate Bodhi Swaha Namo Amitabhaya Tathagata Taryata Amrito Bhavi Amrit Siddham Bhavi Amrita Vikrante Amrita Vikranta Gamini Gagana Kirta Kare Swaha Namo Amitabhaya Kataya Taryata Amrita Bhavi Amrita Siddham Bhavi Amrita Vikrante Amrita Vikrant Kamini Gagana Kirta Kare Swaha Namo Amitabhaya Tathagataya Taryata Amrita Bhavi Siddham Bhavi Amrita Vikrante Amrita Vikranta Kamini Gagana Kirta Kare Swaha. May all beings without limit, without end, have a share in the merit just now made and in what dear and kind to me, beginning with my mother and father, whom I have seen or never seen, and others neutral or hostile beings established in the cosmos, the three realms, the four modes of birth, with 5, 1, or 4 aggregates wandering on from realm to realm. They know of my dedication of merit, may they themselves rejoice, and if they do not know, may the devas inform by reason of the rejoicing in my gift of merit. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May they attain nirvana and their radiant hopes be fulfilled. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. The community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the dwelling in the refuge of Dharma. I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation and taking rep in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Reciting the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limit. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance and support along the